She sold her virginity to a millionaire to save her dad. But after that night, he couldn't let her go. A loud thud echoed through the underground parking garage as Nathan Rivers slammed his hand onto the hood of his black Maserati. His eyes burned red, his jaw clenched, and his fingers trembled with rage. The image of Chloe, his fiancée, locked in a passionate kiss with another man, a colleague from their company, still played in his mind like a cruel, looping tape. He didn't need an explanation. The scene was enough. The woman he trusted with his heart had betrayed him. She didn't love him. She loved his title as CEO, his money, his world. "You're all the same," he growled into the silence. Fury surged through him as he yanked open the car door and hit the gas, sending the tires screeching across the polished cement floor. He didn't drive to his Beverly Hills penthouse, nor to Rivers Food Tech, the tech food empire he built from scratch, now worth over $600 million. Instead, he headed toward a rundown bar tucked away in a shadowy corner of downtown LA, a place no executive would ever be caught dead in. Nathan wasn't much of a drinker. It had never been his way of handling pain. But tonight was different. He wanted quiet, and a glass of something strong enough to silence the ache in his chest. He pulled out his phone and called Ethan, his best friend and CFO. "Bro, what's up? It's late," Ethan answered groggily. "Chloe, I saw her with someone else." A heavy silence dropped between them. "Damn, I told you, man. That woman's trouble." Nathan gave a bitter chuckle. "You're always right. And me? I keep believing in this thing called love. What a fool. Where are you?" "Sunset Bar, South Side." "I could come, but we've got that board meeting early." "Don't bother. I'm good. Just needed..." Silence. "You sure?" Nathan sighed. "I did everything to make her happy. Gave her everything, and yet she betrayed me just for money." Ethan said nothing. Nathan ended the call and leaned back against the bar's worn wooden booth, eyes staring at the old, cracked ceiling. A single tear fell, quiet and fast. He wiped it away before it reached his cheek and lifted the glass of whiskey. Tonight, he wanted peace. But fate had other plans. And while Nathan drowned himself in whiskey, questioning how love could vanish so easily, somewhere else in the same vast city, a young woman was wrestling with fate, willing to trade her pride for the fragile thread of life still holding her father close. 2 souls, 2 wounds, and one unexpected night that would bring their worlds crashing together. Faith Delgado stood at the hospital pharmacy counter in San Diego, her fingers clenching the prescription paper like it held the weight of the world. Her heart sank as she read the bold numbers on the bill: medication for her father's leukemia, a combination of chemo pills and infection control drugs. The cost was unthinkable. She had prayed that insurance would cover it, but her father, a self-employed taxi driver, had no real benefits. She bit her lip, fighting back tears, and walked slowly out the door. "Faith, you're back?" Her father, Armando Delgado, greeted her weakly as she pushed open the door to his hospital room. His face was pale, his body fragile. Still, he tried to smile through the pain. "I brought you some soup," she replied, forcing a smile of her own. "I'm not hungry," he murmured. "You have to eat, Dad. You can't keep throwing up on an empty stomach." He only sighed. Faith didn't want him to see her cry. She placed the soup on the table and stepped into the hallway, where no one could see her break. Pressing her palms against the cold wall, she exhaled in ragged sobs. Every day felt like a war, and she was running out of fight. That evening, in the tiny apartment she shared with her stepmother Lucinda, they counted the last of their savings. "We have maybe a couple weeks left," Lucinda said with a sigh. "Unless a miracle happens?" Faith didn't reply. She knew. Miracles rarely visit the poor. The next morning, she sought out her best friend, Mira, a front desk worker at a high-end spa downtown. "Mira, You said you might help me find a job. Is there anything at all? Mira hesitated. Yes, but you won't like it. As long as it's not illegal, I'll take it. Mira looked her straight in the eye. Escort work. You dress up, go to dinner, talk with men. Sometimes things go further. Faith froze. Mira? No one forces you to sleep with them, but if you do, the money's huge. One night equals 3 months of my paycheck. Faith stood. She wasn't someone who gave in easily, but her father's pain haunted her every second. Slowly, she sat back down. Do you know anyone? Yes, but one rule. You don't get to choose clients. Old, drunk, creepy. You say yes. Faith nodded. For my dad, I'll do it. I can't let him die because I was too proud. Mira held her hand. I hate this, but I get it. Please, just don't lose yourself. And don't blame yourself later. Faith said nothing. That night, Mira texted. He agreed. Tomorrow, 9 p.m., Wilshire 7-Eleven. Wear a white dress. He'll pick you up. Faith didn't sleep. She stared at herself in the mirror for hours. She wasn't the same girl anymore, not the business honors student she used to be. She was a desperate daughter with nowhere else to go. I'm sorry, Dad, she whispered. This is the only way. Los Angeles was colder than usual that night. The wind sliced through the streets, whipping at Faith's thin white dress as she stood in front of the Wilshire 7-Eleven, exactly as instructed. Her watch ticked to 9 p.m. She was trembling, not just from the cold, but from fear. Raw, unfamiliar fear. A black SUV pulled up quietly beside her. The window rolled down. The man inside sat in shadows, but his eyes, tired and detached, locked onto hers. Faith? She nodded. Get in. She climbed into the back seat without a word. Her heart pounded so loud it felt like the whole city could hear it. She'd never done anything like this. And now she was riding with a stranger, heading toward an unknown place, unseen by anyone. The SUV glided through empty streets, then turned up a private hill road that led to a massive estate tucked into the Beverly Hills hillsides. The gates opened automatically. Everything felt distant, expensive, dangerous. Faith was led into a grand living room, warm with soft golden lighting. Abstract art lined the walls, and designer furniture filled the space. The man still hadn't said much. He simply stared at her, long and deep. You haven't done this before, have you? He asked, his voice calm but startlingly honest. She bit her lip and nodded. This isn't my job. I need money for my dad's treatment. His face shifted. Something flickered, surprise, perhaps even discomfort. My name is Nathan, he said quietly. Tonight, you don't have to do anything you don't want to. Faith didn't know how to respond. She hadn't expected kindness. She'd braced herself for something far worse. But those words caught her off guard. Why, did you choose someone like me? She asked. Nathan leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. Because I needed to forget the woman I was going to marry, and because I wanted someone who wouldn't ask questions. Silence settled over them, heavy but strangely gentle. Do you still want to stay? He asked. Faith nodded. I need the money. I'm here for my dad, not for me. He studied her, then stood. Go rest. Your room is upstairs. No one will bother you. And me, I just need to sleep. Faith hadn't expected this, but when she stepped into the guest bedroom and closed the door behind her, the tears came. Quiet, exhausted tears. She was drained from life, from the choices she never wanted to make. The next morning, she awoke still in her wrinkled white dress, head foggy. She tiptoed downstairs, hoping to leave unnoticed. But on the table sat an envelope. Inside was a thick stack of cash and a note that read, No one should have to trade themselves to save someone else. But you did. and I respect that." Faith stepped out into the morning sun, unsure of what she felt. It wasn't shame like she had feared. It was something else, something strange, a kind of ache. Because somewhere in that man's eyes, she had seen something real. Faith thought that night with Nathan would be the last. A desperate choice, a single mistake, and then done. But just 3 days later, her phone rang. A deep, steady voice spoke on the line. "This is Nathan. I want to see you. Today, 3 p.m., Rivers Food Tech headquarters." She hesitated. Maybe he wanted the money back. Maybe he'd sue her. Whatever it was, she had nothing left to lose. The Rivers Food Tech Tower loomed high in downtown Los Angeles, all glass and corporate power. Faith entered feeling invisible among the polished professionals. She was guided to the 21st floor. The glass doors slid open. Nathan stood with his back to her, staring out the window. "You're here," he said without turning. "Sit." She sat on a sleek leather chair, heart pounding. She had no idea what was coming. Nathan finally turned, placing a small cloth pouch on the table, her forgotten wallet, lipstick, and hair clip. "You left these behind." "Thank you," she whispered. He sat, his gaze sharp and unreadable. "Do you know why I tracked you down?" She shook her head. "Because I can't stop thinking about you. You're not like anyone I've met." Faith tensed. She didn't know if this was pity, curiosity, or some twisted new game. "I want to make you an offer," he continued. Her guard went up. "I want you to be my woman. Not public, not romantic, just a contract. You'll accompany me when needed. Events, dinners, trips. In return, I'll pay you $5 million over 1 year. Cash, no legal strings." Faith's world tilted. You're serious? I know your father's ill, and I know you sold yourself for him. You're not a prostitute, Faith. You're a daughter, and I want to help, but I also want you to stay. She shot up. "You're trying to buy me." He remained calm. "No, I'm proposing a deal that benefits us both." She wanted to scream, to throw the pouch in his face and walk out. But the image of her father trembling in a hospital bed hit her like a blow. $5 million, a lifetime. "So, you want a mistress?" she asked, her voice trembling. "No," he said. "I don't need a toy. I need someone beside me, with no emotional complications. And I believe you can do that." She sat back down. Shame, anger, and desperation churned inside her. "1 year?" she asked softly. "1 year." She closed her eyes, thought of her father, of hospital bills, of Mira saying, "We don't live on dreams, we live on sacrifice." She opened her eyes. "I agree, but 3 conditions. You don't touch me unless I allow it. You stay out of my personal life outside the contract, and when the year ends, you let me go." Nathan nodded. "Deal." Faith stood, extending her hand. "Then let's sign it." They shook, not as lovers, but as 2 people walking into something dangerous, something calculated. Neither of them knew. It would be the very thing they tried to keep out that would undo them both. The agreement between Faith and Nathan started as a cold, transactional deal. But weeks of living together in the quiet elegance of the Beverly Hills penthouse had slowly chipped away at those walls. At first, they were just strangers, a powerful man and a desperate girl with no choice but to stay. But small details started to shift everything. Faith began making coffee for Nathan each morning, setting it by his desk before disappearing. Nathan, no matter how busy, always stopped by the kitchen when she cooked. They started having dinner together, sometimes in silence, but always gentle. Faith began to smile more. Nathan began to speak more. One night, Faith collapsed with a high fever. Nathan found her slumped in the kitchen. He carried her to bed, called his private doctor, and stayed by her side all night, changing cold towels, giving her water. She woke at 3 a.m. to find him asleep beside her bed, dark circles under his eyes, hand still holding hers. For the first time in years, she felt safe. From then on, they drifted closer. Unspoken boundaries began to blur. Accidental touches lingered. Eyes met and looked away too slowly. They shared stories about his mother, her father, their childhoods, their broken dreams. "You remind me of my mom," Nathan confessed one night on the balcony. "She was strong, warm, like you." Faith didn't know whether to feel honored or heartbroken, because her heart, quietly, slowly, had begun to lean toward him too. Then came the night it rained. Nathan took her hand. "Can we forget the contract? Just for one night?" he asked. She didn't speak. She just nodded. And that night, there was no agreement, no money, no conditions. Just two fragile souls finding comfort in each other's arms. The next morning, Faith woke up believing something had changed. Maybe there was a chance. Maybe she could stay. Not because of the contract, but because of love. But all that hope shattered within minutes. 3 days later, at a gala in the Grove Hotel, Faith accompanied Nathan. She wore the blush-colored dress he picked for her. Her hair was up, her smile radiant. People looked at her with admiration, mistaking her for Nathan's official partner. She went to the restroom to fix her makeup, and fate was waiting. Chloe, golden-haired, red-lipped, perfectly dressed. She looked into the mirror, met Faith's eyes, and smiled like a cat with a mouse in its claws. "You must be Faith," she purred. "Nathan has good taste." Faith stiffened. "He told you I'm out of the picture, didn't he?" Chloe stepped closer. "Well, surprise. We're still engaged, and," she placed a hand gently over her stomach, "I'm pregnant with his child." Faith froze. The air left her lungs. Her knees weakened. "You're lying," she whispered. "Am I?" Chloe smiled cruelly. "He's weak. He'll always come back to me. And once this baby is born, you'll be a memory. A contract girl, nothing more." Faith's mind spun. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her world blurred into noise and color and pain. She stumbled out of the restroom. The gala lights were too bright, the music too loud, the air too thick. She didn't confront Nathan, didn't ask. She packed her things that night, her heart shattered in pieces. She left a handwritten note. "I'm not the one you need. Take care of your child, and thank you for showing me what love almost felt like." Then she walked away. No calls, no tears, no goodbye. Faith left Los Angeles without looking back. She didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't call out for anyone. She just left, like someone who had used every last ounce of strength to escape a nightmare no one else believed was real. She took a long-distance bus heading north to Oregon. Brookville was quiet, hidden in trees and fog. There were no skyscrapers, no galas, no whispers of Nathan Rivers, just air that smelled like earth and healing. Faith arrived empty-handed, with a worn-out body and a shattered heart. She thought she had hit rock bottom, but only a few weeks later she found out she was pregnant. She sat frozen in the bathroom for nearly an hour, clutching the double-line test. She didn't cry. She didn't scream like in the movies. She just trembled, staring blankly at herself in the mirror. How can I be a mother? How can I raise a child? Alone? Lucinda didn't ask many questions. She simply took Faith's hand and said, "If you want to keep it, I'll be with you. If you don't, I won't leave you either." Faith chose to keep it, not because she felt forced, but because, when she placed her hand over her belly, she felt something alive, something that needed her. A week later, she visited the clinic for a checkup. The ultrasound tech smiled gently. "Miss Delgado, congratulations, you're having twins." Faith froze. "I'm sorry. What did you say?" "A boy and a girl, strong heartbeats. Everything looks good." She placed her hand over her stomach, and her throat tightened. In that quiet ultrasound room, tears streamed down her face, not out of fear, but because, for the first time in a long time, her heart felt full. 2 lives, 2 gifts from fate, 2 reasons to keep breathing. She named them Lucas, meaning light, and Liana, meaning life. From that moment on, Faith no longer lived for herself. Every choice, every breath, every sleepless night belonged to her unborn children. She never reached out to Nathan, not a single message, not one phone call. He didn't need to know. She didn't need him to know, because she didn't want her children to grow up in the shadow of pity or reluctant duty. The months that followed were brutally hard. Faith took a job as a waitress at a small diner at the edge of town. Each day she walked nearly 2 miles on foot. She had no car. Sometimes it rained, and she'd wrap herself and her growing belly in an old raincoat, stepping through puddles without complaint. Her body ached, her feet swelled, but she worked until her 8th month of pregnancy. At night, she learned to bake with Lucinda. They opened a little porch bakery, selling cookies, cinnamon rolls, and garlic bread to neighbors. At first, just a few customers came out of kindness, but over time the scent of their baking drew a line down the block. Their small home was always warm, no matter how harsh the wind blew outside. Faith didn't have time to complain. Whenever exhaustion crept in, she'd place a hand over her belly, where 2 tiny heartbeats reminded her, "As long as you're healthy, I can endure anything." And then, on a snowy winter night, Lucas and Liana were born. The pain nearly made her pass out. But the moment their cries filled the delivery room, Faith wept even louder than her children. 2 pink faces, 2 tiny fists waving wildly, 2 mouths searching for warmth. She pressed them to her skin, cheek to cheek, and whispered, "Mommy's here. No one will ever hurt you, I promise." 3 years passed like a dream. Lucas grew fast and wild. He loved running barefoot in the yard, collecting rocks, and asking endless questions. Liana was gentle and thoughtful, always drawing pictures and holding her mother's hand at bedtime. Each morning, the 3 of them, along with Lucinda, woke early to bake, prepare breakfast, and divide up the day's tasks. Faith never lied to her children about their father. But she didn't tell the full story either. She decided to wait until they were old enough to understand what love was and what letting go really meant. Some nights, after putting the twins to bed, Faith would sit alone on the porch, listening to the wind rustle the eaves, her eyes lost among the stars above. There was still a quiet space in her heart, one that belonged to the man her children had never met. She wondered, if Nathan knew, would he come? Would he recognize his smile in Lucas's face, his eyes in Liana's gaze? Then she would sigh, gently shake her head. Not because she still resented him, but because she had learned to live without expectations. She chose to live for the present, where her children ran into her arms shouting, "Mommy, I love you more than anything in the world." And in those moments, Faith knew. She already had everything. Faith thought her life would continue just like this, peaceful, simple, and complete beside her 2 little children. She no longer wished for miracles, nor expected anyone from the past to return. But fate, like a patient shadow, always chooses the quietest moment to twist everything with a single, unexpected turn. And one day, just as the early autumn sun softened in the sky, Faith had no idea that the front door of her tiny bakery was about to swing open and let the past walk right into her present. 3 years after Faith left, Nathan Rivers had become a different man, more successful, more guarded, and lonelier than ever. His business had grown, his fortune had doubled, but his heart remained an empty space no one could fill. He had tried to forget Faith with short-lived relationships, endless parties, and massive projects. But in the quiet of the night, when the penthouse fell silent, her face would return, clearer than any memory should be. Seeing their son buried in nonstop work, Nathan's parents finally convinced him to spend a week resting in Oregon, where they owned a lakeside vacation home. After many refusals, he eventually agreed, partly to escape the city, partly for reasons he couldn't quite name. That afternoon, while wandering a small shopping mall near the town of Brookville, looking for a gift for his mother, Nathan suddenly froze outside a toy store. A boy, about 3 years old, was crouched near a shelf, carefully choosing toy fire trucks. His soft curls, round cheeks, and deep eyes, there was something strikingly familiar. Nathan stood still, watching through the glass. His heart skipped a beat. The boy looked up and met Nathan's gaze. There was no fear, no shyness, just quiet curiosity, followed by a shy smile. And in that smile, something inside Nathan jolted. He looks just like me, exactly like me as a child. Nathan stepped closer and crouched down gently. "What's your name, little guy?" The boy answered politely. "I'm Lucas. I like fire trucks." Lucas, Nathan's chest tightened. Just then, a little girl joined him, around the same age. She had long, silky hair and warm brown eyes like brewed tea. Nathan didn't need more proof. The resemblance, the energy, they were undeniable. An older woman called the children back, and they quickly disappeared down the aisle. Nathan stood frozen, a storm rising inside him. This wasn't a coincidence. That night, sleep didn't come. Faces, expressions, gestures, they looped through his mind like film reels. He contacted a local investigator and asked for information about the two children. Within a day, he received a name: Faith Delgado, owner of a small bakery in Brookville. The message hit him like a punch. The next morning, Nathan arrived at the bakery just as it opened. The small shop was warm and inviting, filled with the smell of sweet pastries. Through the window, he saw a woman carefully arranging cookies on a tray. Brown hair tied up, a familiar posture. Gloved hands moving with care. His heartbeat thundered in his chest. Faith looked up. Their eyes met. She froze. The tray tilted slightly in her hands, a few cookies dropping onto the counter. "Nathan?" Her voice trembled like a breeze in winter. He stepped closer. "It's me. I came to find you." In that moment, time stopped. The past came crashing into the present, washing over both of them. Faith's expression twisted with shock, pain, and disbelief, as if all the memories she had tried to bury for 3 years had surfaced with a single glance. Why didn't you tell me?" His voice cracked. "About Lucas and Liana?" Faith looked down. Words caught in her throat. "I didn't know if you'd want to know," she said, voice barely audible. "Back then, I thought you had chosen your new family. I didn't want to interfere." Nathan went still. "You thought I'd abandoned my own children?" Faith swallowed hard. "No, I just thought maybe you didn't need them. I was scared, and I chose to walk away." Outside the shop, the wind chime rang gently. Lucas and Liana ran up laughing, their tiny feet padding across the sidewalk. Nathan turned to see them, and his eyes filled with heat. He didn't know what would happen next, but in that moment he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He wasn't going to let Faith walk away again. After that unexpected encounter, Faith couldn't sleep. Her heart was in turmoil, as if the past 3 years had been a dream, unfinished, and suddenly returned. The next morning, while she was stacking loaves of bread on the display shelf, the bakery door opened, and Nathan stepped in. Same eyes, same tall frame, same presence she had once loved so fiercely it hurt to breathe. "We need to talk," he said gently. Faith nodded, leading him to the back, a small kitchen corner where morning sunlight filtered through the window, casting their silhouettes on the old brick wall. Nathan stood still for a moment before finally speaking. "Chloe lied to you." Faith looked up, stunned. She showed up at that hotel uninvited. We had broken up long before I ever met you, and she was never pregnant. His voice dropped. I was furious when I found out later, but by the time I went looking for you, you were gone. No one knew where you were. You didn't reply to messages. I thought I had lost you forever. Faith clenched the hem of her apron, her eyes welling with tears. I believed her, she whispered. I thought I was just a passing chapter in your life. I was scared of being a burden to you, scared our children wouldn't be wanted. Nathan stepped closer, eyes filled with pain. Faith, you were never a burden, and the children, they're my own flesh and blood. I missed 3 years of being a father. Do you know what that feels like? Faith's tears fell. Lucas and Liana, she choked out. They're my everything, but I never forgot you. Every time I look at them, I see you, in the way they smile, the way they look at me. Nathan reached for her hand, for the first time in years. I love you, Faith. I haven't been able to love anyone else in 3 years. No one could ever replace you, and no one can replace Lucas and Liana. I don't want to start over with just you. I want to start over with all 3 of you. Slowly, he knelt down. From his coat pocket, he pulled out a simple yet elegant silver ring. Will you marry me? Not out of obligation, but because you're the only woman I want to rebuild my life with. And being with your children would be the greatest gift this life could ever offer me. Faith covered her mouth, trying to stifle the sobs. She had never imagined this day would come. She had accepted living the rest of her life as a single mother, expecting no one to return, hoping only for peace. And yet, here he was, the man who had once been her deepest wound, now standing before her, offering to become her lifelong shelter. She nodded, through tears. Yes, I will. Nathan pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly, afraid that if he let go, she would disappear again, just like 3 years ago. By the kitchen window, Lucas and Liana peeked in through a crack in the door, holding hands and whispering, Mommy's crying. Maybe she's happy. And they were right. For the first time in years, Faith cried, not out of pain, but because true happiness had finally found its way back home. A few days after the proposal, Faith decided it was time to tell the twins the truth. She sat down in the living room, holding Lucas and Liana's hands, her heart racing as if she were becoming a mother all over again. Nathan sat beside her, his eyes gentle, quietly waiting. My loves, Faith began, her voice trembling slightly. There's something I want to tell you, something very special. Lucas blinked. Is it about the handsome man we met the other day? Faith let out a soft laugh and nodded. Yes, it is. His name is Nathan, and he's not just Mommy's friend. He's your biological father. The room fell silent for a few seconds. Liana looked at Lucas, then back at Faith. Really, Mommy? It's true, she said softly, tears welling in her eyes. And your dad loves you both so much. He didn't know you existed until now, but he always missed me. And now he wants to be with us forever. Lucas stood up and ran over to Nathan. The boy looked up at him for a moment, then suddenly threw his arms around his neck. Daddy, he whispered. Nathan wrapped him tightly in his arms, tears streaming down his face. His hands trembled as he pressed Lucas to his chest, as if trying to make up for every day he had missed. I've waited my whole life to hold you, he whispered. Liana followed, hugging them both. Faith couldn't hold back her tears. Her heart felt as though it were melting. Her family, finally, was whole. Word reached the Rivers family quickly. At first, Nathan's parents were shocked, but when they met Faith and their 2 grandchildren, they cried with joy. She's the reason our son changed, Nathan's mother said, and now we understand why. They welcomed Faith with open arms and no conditions. Lucas and Liana instantly became the stars of every family conversation, from decorating their new rooms to planning their first birthday celebration with their grandparents. For a few weeks, their lives felt suspended in gentle joy, each day more ordinary, but more sacred than the last. 2 months later, the wedding took place in a small countryside church nestled in the peaceful fields of Brookville. Faith wore an ivory gown, walking down the aisle to gentle music, while Nathan, the man she once believed was part of her past, stood waiting with steady, loving eyes. Lucas was the ring-bearer, and Liana held a basket of petals, both dressed in white, their cheeks rosy and eyes gleaming with happiness. The ceremony was simple, yet deeply emotional. There was no fancy wine, no celebrity guest list, only family, friends, and a love that had once been tested to its core, now reborn and unshakable. With the support of Nathan's family, Faith's small bakery was transformed into a growing local brand. Still, she kept the old oven in that first little kitchen, the one where she had baked her first batches with tears and hope. Now she baked not just to survive, but to remember the days she thought she would never know love again. Nathan gradually stepped away from his corporate role, spending more time with his family. Evenings reading with the kids, Sunday mornings baking with Faith, quiet holidays by the lake. All of it became the most treasured part of his life. One autumn afternoon, as the family played in the backyard, Faith sat quietly, sipping warm tea, watching her husband and their children laugh under the golden sunlight. She smiled, her heart light as the early breeze. Nathan called out from across the yard, "Faith, you know what? True love can lose its way, but it always finds a way back." She nodded, her eyes glistening. "I know, because I watched it return and stay." As their children's laughter echoed through the golden light, Faith closed her eyes, resting her head against his shoulder. Finally home,